Take a ride, ride of your life. Take a ride. You're feeling out of balance and you're put to the test. Take the ride of your life to reach your personal best. When you're driven, you're really living full speed ahead. Take a ride.
Hello and welcome to Kick Conflict to the Curb, the place that department managers and growth-minded individuals come to learn the newest strategies about communication and resolving conflict. I'm Joyce Weiss, your host, Queen of Conflict Resolution, and I support department managers and leaders to inspire and motivate their direct reports who are tired of feeling invisible and overlooked and are ready to confidently use their voice. The result is that their input is recognized and respected, and their experience is taken seriously. Make sure and stay until the end of the program, where I'm going to share how those of you who would like to set up a Jam with Joyce session one-on-one, how you can do this, complimentary, of course. Well, I have a question for you. Are you sick and tired of those uninvited strangers asking you, or actually not asking, telling you, you've got to sign up for me, for my services with the products so that your SEO is going to be improved. I have a franchise for you that are going to make you millions of dollars. Well, I'm at the point, my dear viewers, that I actually laugh and I look forward to getting them because they're getting more aggressive and pushy. And I am so excited to have our guest help us with this. And our special guest, Beth Granger, is a powerhouse on building relationships on social media. And I'd like to introduce you to Beth Granger. Beth Granger is a trainer, consultant, and speaker who works with organizations and individuals who want to unleash their power of LinkedIn, taking them from confused to confident on their platform. She is also an Exactly What to Say certified guide, helping people identify and elevate life's critical conversations. Do you see why I invited Beth? Here's a fun fact about Beth. She has never performed karaoke. Let's welcome Beth Granger, who says that after the pandemic, she thought about adding haircutting and puzzle doing as skills on her LinkedIn profile. Welcome to the show, Beth Granger.
Oh, what fun. I love that intro.
Well, thank you. I mean, I knew this was going to be fun once I found out about karaoke. Should I ask you now to sing or should we forget it?
In the car, in the shower,
Yes.
and around my house. But
okay.
I've never done official karaoke. I'm going on a cruise in a couple of months, so maybe I will do it then. I'll report back.
Please do. And then when you return to be a guest on the show, then we'll have to change your introduction. So, Beth, we're going to talk about something that I know that I want answers, like how to communicate to strangers. But first, let's talk a very important question I have. What can you automate?
On LinkedIn?
Yeah, on LinkedIn.
So it's really interesting that right now everybody's trying to automate everything, right? It's still so new that people are kind of playing with it and seeing what works. I think there are some great things you can help automate. So, and they're all related to content development. So if you have a video, so perhaps you have the video from this conversation we're having today, there are tools that can chop it up for you into shorter pieces that you can use on social media like LinkedIn. So that's something I think is great to automate. Or if you have total no ideas for something to post, you can get some ideas, say from ChatGPT or similar tools.
Mm-hmm.
You can automate changing the size of graphics. So it's just, if you think of it as a tool, right, to help you do things that would take either a long time or that you couldn't do in another way, then I think it's great.
I love that. Well, thank you for giving me that idea. I mean, I'm going to chop this interview up. Of course, we're going to have the entire interview. I'm going to chop it up, and so that is going to be part of it. And some of our viewers and guests may not even, they've heard about Chat GPT. I know I use it to get the titles of blog, or I am going to actually be writing a LinkedIn newsletter thanks to listening to you on different programs. So give us just a couple of examples of how you use chat, easy examples, how you use it.
Yeah. So you have to know yourself. I happen to really like to write.
Mhm.
So I don't use it to author things. If you do use it to author things, please, please, please always use it just as the first draft and then make it your own, make it your
Mhm.
voice, add your personality to it. The way I use it is, for instance, if I have an event I'm putting on and I have the title and I have maybe I ask it to give me an outline or ideas for a title, and then I piece it together. It's always, I worked with somebody years ago who said it's always easier to edit than author. So sometimes if I'm kind of playing with an idea, I see what it comes up with. And even if it's that I don't like any of them,
Mhm.
then it's something to react to. It's something to say, oh, I don't like that word, but maybe I want this word.
Love that. And I know, like I said, I do it for blog titles. I'm going to do it for my LinkedIn newsletter, and the outline is brilliant. And at the end of the interview, I'm going to have LinkedIn, how you can reach Beth. And I assume if anybody has a quick question for you about that, I mean, I didn't ask you if I was okay, but if it's not, but I know you enough that would be yes. So, okay, here comes, I just can't wait for this one. This part of the conversation is, what are some of the horrible invitations that you have received? And after I hear yours, probably mine aren't going to be as bad, but I may add a couple.
I actually wrote a newsletter, and I call it LinkedIn Invite Purgatory, because when I go through the invites, obviously there's some that are right away, yes, maybe I met the person or for whatever reason. There's some immediate no's, just if it's just creepy or for whatever reason as well. And then there are the ones in the middle. And I have, I think, about 200 people sitting in invite purgatory because I have to go through and make a decision. Either they didn't put a message, so I have to check out their profile, or they put a message and I'm just not sure. So some of my favorites, there was a while, and I don't know if somebody was giving people a script or how it happened. It seemed like 3 in a row or a few in a row all said, I stumbled across your profile. So I was thinking my profile must be very dangerous because they're stumbling on it. So I feel like there's somebody advising people to soften the request, maybe by saying that. I'm not really sure. Or it's in their automated tool. Speaking of automation, please, please, please don't use an automated tool to send out those requests. So stumbled, that was a good one. People have started pitching. You've heard of the connect and pitch. That's where they pitch after you say yes.
Oh, heard.
But now, yeah. But now they're pitching in the connection invite.
And I would like to know, you're right, maybe it's AI, we don't know. But I know one thing, they're not going to be watching this program because they need it. It's always the people who need it that don't get the training. I have true confession here. That was me at the beginning. It was new. And I had somebody help me with my connections, even, Beth. I know, to find out who department managers would. Would they be a good fit, a good connection? And it was exactly that. I didn't say I stumbled, but hey, because I'm a communication coach and you're a department head, I thought it would be great. I'll tell you though, we got a lot of connections from that. But still, once I learned that that was a no-no, the pushy part, it's gone now, Beth. So I feel I could stand up and say, yay, Joyce. But what could you, for those people who may be saying to themselves right now, Joyce, that's me, what word of advice, encouragement could you motivate people who are saying, "Ooh, that's me"? What could you share with them to maybe entice them to change this?
Sure. Well, when people are doing that, they're thinking of their LinkedIn behavior in a similar way to, say, cold calling, right? They're
Mhm.
going after hundreds of people hoping to get three.
Yes.
I think, and from my experience and observation, that it's better to do it manually and one by one and build actual relationships. You're still going to get the same three people. It's just going to be a better relationship, right? So it's,
Mhm.
um, and people have their walls up on LinkedIn because of the bad behavior. So there are a lot of people who they just make the assumption that they're going to be sold to, so they don't want to connect or they don't want to meet. So you have to take it more slowly than you might want to build a relationship. It's just like meeting somebody in person. You're not going to ask them at the first event you met them at if they would buy your product or service. So
I wouldn't, but those pushy ones will. Here's my card. Can I call you on Monday? What time is good for you? Yeah. So the one-on-one, I love that. And how do you, we're going to talk about how you connect with strangers in a moment, but what would be a good way for people to find, like, for me, it's department managers and leaders. Any advice on how you can find one-on-one people who fit your profile?
sure. Well, obviously the LinkedIn search is
Mhm.
the first place to begin. And you have to be a little bit like a detective because the search is very literal. So sometimes I like to put a single word. In other words, I don't put the full title. I wouldn't put, say, VP or director or manager.
Mhm.
I would put just the term for the responsibility area that I'm looking for. Um, and then try to narrow it down because you're going to get millions of responses and
Correct.
that's too hard. So is there something else you can do to make it more specific? A specific industry, geography, things like that. So that's really the first place I begin is in the search.
That's great. I love that. I love it. And you're right. Instead of, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you don't want 1,000 people that want to talk to you because you're not going to be able to do it. So get 3 people who already trust you after that first interview. Well, let me tell you, we are going to continue this great conversation with Beth. But first, we're going to take a short break. And please stay with us because we're going to come back and talk with Beth Granger on how you can successfully communicate with strangers. I know I'm going to stay here. Are you ready to stop feeling invisible and start feeling confident using your voice? Let's set up a complimentary Jam with Joyce call to improve your relationships and finally get that inner peace. If this is something that you want, send me an email, joyce@joyceweiss.com, and I'll send you my calendar. Welcome back. I'm Joyce Weiss, your host. You're watching Kick Conflict to the Curb, and we have this special guest, Beth Granger. So, Beth, I just have to tell you, after listening to you and after you and I are having this conversation, I'm saying, oh my God, here the ad is about me. But in my mind, and you tell me, push back because we can both deal with conflict. I know that. Hopefully, people watching this, you're either my first connection or you're a guest of Beth. What do you think? Too aggressive?
It's a really good question. No, because you're offering something that could be of value for somebody. and
Mhm.
you're not selling. You're offering time with you, which is the most valuable thing you have, right? So so I think no. I mean, I don't know, would I do the same thing for myself? Not sure, because I
Mhm.
haven't done a live stream in a while of my own. But yeah, I don't think it's pushy. No, I think
Okay.
it's cool. Plus you could even, if somebody sponsored your live stream, you could do their little commercial then too.
Oh, love that. Love that idea. Well, thank you. Like anything, folks, anything on social media, when you do something new, it's a risk. It's either going to work or not work. And I'd rather take a risk and say, oh, wow, was that a huge mistake? Because we sort of, learn from them. So now comes to my selfish question. How can you successfully communicate with a stranger or with a connection you don't know well? I've been waiting for this one ever since you accepted the invitation to be on the
Uh,
show.
well, I think they're in two separate categories, first of all. So, someone that you don't know, it depends on what level of connection they are. So, on LinkedIn, if they're a second connection, that means there's at least one person that is connected to both of you.
Mhm.
And ideally, you would get an introduction, because that's better than reaching out cold. Can that happen? It depends. Depends on how well the person in between you knows both of you, if they're willing to do it. And that to me is the ideal way. So,
Mhm.
in fact, when you're doing that search, maybe you start with just second connections and first,
Oh.
because you may have connections in your own network that are your prospects and you don't even realize it. Um, so, and then there's something you can do if, for instance, you can't get the introduction for whatever reason, or they're a third connection, so you don't know
Mhm.
the path to that person. And this technique only works if the person is active on LinkedIn. And by active, I mean they share content. So, what you're going to do is you're going to go to their activity, their posts, and you're going to consume them. You're going to read them, watch them, whatever it is. And then, and this is very sneaky, don't tell anybody, you are going to make an honest comment on their post, just like you would if you were in a room full of people and somebody was telling you something. Think about what you might say in response to that. And then here's the sort of sneaky part: ask a question that you actually have. Because if you ask somebody if somebody asks you a question on your post, what are you going to do?
Answer and then give them some kind of a compliment, especially if I know them a
So,
little
yeah.
bit.
So you've started a conversation with someone you don't know,
Mhm.
right? So then if you reach
Sure.
out and you mention that, thanks for answering my question about XYZ. How about we connect? They're much more likely to want to connect. But, and you've probably seen this too, you don't want to respond to 3 of their posts, go follow them on somewhere Instagram and like 6 of their posts. It's just creepy. Feels like somebody's
Mhm.
stalking you. So you really want to allow the relationship to develop and take the time to wait for their response and take it slowly. But it's the idea of starting a conversation before sending the connection invite. So that's for
So
people you don't know.
okay, so let me recap because this is more because I'm going to do exactly what you say that you find your a second connection first is the best because they may be perfect for you to have this conversation.
Well,
You go
let's
on.
keep first separate. That we'll
Okay.
talk about that in a minute. This is
Okay,
only
this
for
is second.
second or third.
Okay, second or third, then you go to their posts and you go on and you start a conversation. You ask a question. Then eventually, after time, and for those of us that like it, you jump into the water, hold back, and then you can, would you, because of this or that, I think it would be great to connect with you. So did I
Yes.
recap? Okay,
Yes. Yes. The idea is to use the idea that, first of all, curiosity is the fuel for conversation, and to
sure
use
is.
those conversations that then turn into a relationship. It's just taking your time to get to know somebody and allow them to get to know you through the comments and through conversation before you try to connect with them.
God, am I learning from you? So what about the people who they're your first, you know them because you're connected, but they're not strangers.
And they may be, right? You might have been at an event, sat next to somebody, had a great conversation, connected. If
True.
you've never spoken since then, they
Mhm.
are, but they're in your network, so you can
Yes.
reach out. And that's when I would recommend reaching out and starting with a fact. Hey, we've been connected since April of 2020, but we've never had a chance to really get to know each other. Are you open to a short networking conversation?
Hmm.
And the key is if you say networking conversation, it has to be that. You can't do the bait and switch and try to sell them something. You do have
Correct.
to actually have a conversation just to get to know them to start with.
Mhm. Love that. So again, it takes time. Let them know how you met. Would you invite them? Would you like to have a conversation? Then if they respond to you, great. If not, do you go after them again? The old days, it takes 20 times for people to respond. I said old days. What do you do if someone doesn't respond to that lovely connection message that you gave?
Honestly, I move on to somebody else most of the time because I'm
Mhm.
not necessarily even noticing. And there are people who aren't active and you can tell by their
Ah,
profile, right? If they're not super active, maybe they don't even have a picture or you can tell from their profile.
mhm.
Maybe they haven't even seen your message. So if they don't expect that someone's going to respond the next day, that people have lives, people have things that they're focusing on. So um, if it's somebody that you really, really want to reconnect with, maybe you have their email address because you're connected with them. Maybe you send them
Mhm.
an email. Maybe they're not on LinkedIn enough. So you can reach. And there's this amazing thing. We have it next to us 24 hours a day. Maybe you pick up the phone and call them, right? So they're
Yes.
they're connected with you, so you have their contact information.
And I have a feeling because I know the phone was always, I have to hold this up so people know what a phone is. The phone is something that I used at the beginning of my career, 120 years ago. And let me tell you, Beth, it worked. And I'm so glad you said that. It still works. And people who I do know and say what you just said, I'd love to reconnect. It's been so long. They call me, not all of them, obviously, but many of them call me back, and there is there is the connection. So it still does work for those of you who are averse to using the phone. Fine, there are other ways, but it's still there, you know.
Absolutely.
Great. Now I'm ready for another conversation, but do you have more? Because I don't want to stop
I
this.
think that those are
Okay.
good places for people to start.
You
Absolutely.
think? I'm going to re-watch this and take copious notes, which I'm not doing because I want to make sure that I'm staring right at you, Beth. So you are an exactly what to say certified guide. What is a common theme where people struggle in communication since you are this guide?
Oh, there's so many different places. I mean, think about yourself. How many conversations have you had that maybe afterwards you think about, oh, I should have said this, I should have said that, or wake up at 3 in the morning replaying the conversation over in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's some key places, right? There's the starting of the conversation. People are
Mm-hmm.
sometimes uncomfortable or fearful. What's going to happen? Am I going to get rejected? Right. So that's a place in a conversation that people often are uncomfortable with. And then there's the place where if it becomes a little, I won't say combative, but more where it just starts to feel like it's going in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
And that's enough. I think those are two big places that people have challenges with.
Oh, and I, as a communication coach, I so agree. And in my world, the kick conflict to the curb world, there's two things that I deal with along your line there. Making conversation safe is such a good first beginning. People don't know, and you just said it, even how to start the conversation. So that's number one. And verbal aikido is a strategy that I use with coaching or facilitation, and that's how to protect yourself when either someone's pushing you or how you can back off and say to yourself, okay, what do I have to do to gain control? So we're talking about the same thing here, different words, but similar strategies. And could you briefly tell us what is and exactly what to say certified guide?
Absolutely. So, Exactly What to Say uh, started as a book by Phil M. Jones, and it's turned into a movement. There are about 40 guides now where we've been
Hmm.
certified and trained to use this work in combination with our core business, or really in any way that we want to help people have more powerful conversations. So, some people use it for sales, some people use it for leadership, some people use it personally.
Oh, that sounds fascinating. So you and I could have another conversation when you come back, not if. Is that a little seeding here? Just on more information about you
Yeah.
being a guide. It sounds great. So tell us, hmm, has Beth Granger ever had a tough conversation with a colleague or leader in your life?
Of course.
I was hoping you'd say that. Otherwise, what would I do then? Tell
Ah,
us, please, what happened? What was the situation, and how did you handle
oh,
it?
which one? I should have planned ahead for this. Um, oh, there's so many good ones.
A colleague, a leader, a family member?
Well, I will tell you a personal one. I know, business is, but that's the first one that came to my mind.
Let's do it.
There's somebody very special to me in my life, and when we first met, we would talk not all that frequently necessarily, and it felt like I was always initiating the call.
Mhm.
And then I realized something. I realized maybe they didn't need frequent communication to feel like we were close. Maybe that was my need. So I said to them, I would really like to speak more frequently, and I don't always want to be the one initiating the call. And guess what? The next call wasn't made by me. So sometimes it's realizing that might not be their need.
Mhm. And what you just did with this personal call is that was a risk to say that because you're sharing something and they could either say, yeah, you're right. You call me way too much. I don't even like you. Can't imagine anybody saying that about you, Beth Granger. And it's again taking a risk. And that's why folks, when you have a personal example was just perfect because usually when you say it in a way to make it safe for that person to answer, not in a tough way, "Hey, you never call me," rah, 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 that's when you could even say to yourself, "Hmm, is this the imposter syndrome? Does this person really," and that's what we do to ourselves. "Does this person really do they maybe they don't like me?" Well, the only way you're gonna know is ask and stop feeding that negativity in your brain. Maybe they don't like you, but figure it out by asking that question just like you did. So that's awesome.
And
And
are you open to me sharing one of the exactly what to say phrases that I think is great for something like this?
I'm all ears.
So sometimes when you're in a conversation, it's it's going in a direction you're not comfortable with, or you don't didn't want it to go, but you don't know why. You don't know what somebody's experienced in the past. So one of my favorite things to say is, what is your experience with?
Mm.
Because then that will uncover, like, if it's just a conversation that seems like it's back and forth, but yet somehow they're being negative, or they feel like it feels like they're putting up a wall, by asking that, you'll uncover, well, I spoke to somebody who does what you do 3 years ago, and I paid them a lot of money and it didn't work, right? So you'll learn from that experience, from asking that question.
Brilliant. Then you would know how to respond because you heard, because we don't know what's on somebody else's mind. Mind readers, we all do that, or maybe you did that in the past and you learn. What a great phrase. Oh, you got to come back. So, matter of fact, I can't believe our time is up. And I appreciate this conversation. And that's what it was. It was not an interview. I tried very hard, and you were a perfect guest. So, like I asked before, you will come back, right?
Of course.
And I'm going to put on your LinkedIn. And if you say it, just in case somebody's listening and they're not watching, how can people reach you on LinkedIn?
Sure. It's linkedin.com/in/Beth Granger. And my messages are open. So I've decided to ignore the sales pitches so that I can get the amazing conversations that start from people on the platform.
Oh, that's so you practice what you preach. That's great. And what about Instagram?
Oh, yeah, I am on Instagram. Not quite as active as on LinkedIn, but
Okay.
Beth Granger says. Somebody had Beth Granger back in the day. So,
Yeah, there are a few Beth Grangers on LinkedIn, so I discovered, but they
ah.
didn't look like you. So that's when I said, okay, they all had straight hair. Well, listen, thank you so much, Beth, for being such a stellar guest. I say this all the time on our emails back and forth and on LinkedIn about you. And I do feel that way, and appreciate your time and your friendship. And until next time, thank you. So I sure hope that you appreciated learning from Beth as much as I did. And if you would like more information on how you can enjoy actually those tough conversations and not fear them, all you have to do is go to joyceweiss.com. And that's where you're going to find articles that you can use if you have your own newsletter that you need some more information. You'll find strategies on how to have that tough conversation, and even coaching options and small group facilitation that I'd be very happy and speak to you about. And for those of you who want to uh, connect with me, and only this, I'm not pushing. If you're a stranger, forget it. If you would like to have a complimentary Jam with Joyce session, all you have to do is send me your email, joyce@joyceweiss.com, and I will be very happy and send you a link so we can have this. And if this sounds like something you want, all you have to do is send me that email. Well, I want to thank all of you who watched the wonderful interview with Beth Granger. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you. And I want to thank Beth and you, my viewers, for watching Kick Conflict to the Curb. And remember, you get what you tolerate.